Hey guys, this is OCB Communications. Welcome to my review of the 2014 comedy, The Interview. Now, this is a movie that had huge controversy surrounding it regarding with North Korea, the Guardians of Peace, the film getting banned because of Sony being hacked and so forth, and a lot of just really the controversy behind the film is actually a little bit more interesting than the actual movie itself. And this is a movie that if you were expecting some grand, amazing movie, if you're going into this with really high expectations regarding to the controversy that surrounds it, you're going to be very disappointed. It's not going to live up to your expectations. But if you're going into it just expecting a fun movie with Seth Rogen and James Franco, I think you might enjoy it. I mean, that's pretty much what I expected. I didn't have super high expectations for this film in the first place. Um, I just was curious about it because of all the controversy and so forth, and also because I like James Franco and like Seth Rogen. And the trailers, I liked the trailers. I thought it might be fun. It might be a funny movie. I mean, when one of the jokes is, you look like you just got fucked by RoboCop. I mean, for me personally, that goes, I got it, I'm just curious to see the film just because it actually had a RoboCop joke. I mean, wow. But anyway, the film itself it's a film that if I saw it for cheap, if it ever does come out on DVD or Blu-ray, I'd pick it up, but I wouldn't buy it brand new right off the bat. It's just, and it's not a film that I would watch. It's not one of my favorite movies of the year. It kind of is. I mean, because I did talk about the favorites thing, and I would say, yeah, it is one of the better films of the year, comedy-wise, but I think now that I think about it some more, I'd probably knock this off the list and then put 22 Jump Street in its place. Because 22 Jump Street I enjoyed a lot more than this. I mean, this had its moments, and it was entertaining, it was funny, but there were other moments that I just thought it was a bit too crass, it was a bit too over the top, and it was a bit too just gory for some reason. I don't understand some of the jokes and some of the whole stuff involving Seth Rogen getting his fingers bitten off. I didn't really find that funny, and I didn't really find it necessary. I was like, what is the point of this? This isn't badass, and it's just weird and awkward and completely unfunny. It just doesn't work. And there's a lot of moments in this film that kind of are like that. It's also a film that makes you feel very uneasy and very uncomfortable from the very beginning with its subject matter. In my opinion, that's why I think the film really suffers, is because I admire its balls, I admire its guts, by actually doing a comedy about North Korea and actually having it take place in North Korea and actually have a whole plot involving killing Kim Jong-un, the leader of North Korea. But at the same time, it didn't need to go that far. It could have easily just had a fictional country and a fictional dictator who's a lot like Kim Jong-un and acts like him, but I think it would have gone a long way because even Charlie Chaplin's The Great Dictator, which was a brilliant satire on Hitler. Charlie Chaplin never called himself Hitler. His character was never referred to as Hitler. And Team America World Police, that was a bunch of puppets. Here it's real people playing, actors playing real life people, real life people, and especially Kim Jong-un, for instance. And the actor did an amazing job. I mean, the actor who plays Kim Jong-un, Randall Park, was fantastic. He was one of the best parts of the film to me, but it's just one of those things where it's like it didn't need to be called Kim Jong-un. It did not need to take place in North Korea. And I think if it did that, I might be able to enjoy it a little bit more because as it stands, it's like it's a fantasy comedy that's it really honestly is it honestly is offensive. And I'm not standing up for North Korea, not standing up for their regime. Their regime is a horrible regime. Kim Jong-un is a horrible human being, but the country itself, the people who live in it, I mean, it's definitely offensive to them. I mean, it opens up with with the little girl basically singing about killing America. And there's really not a lot that actually focuses on the people of North Korea except for a little bit and how we want to prove to them. And that it basically, it portrays the people of North Korea as brainwashed idiots, pretty much, who were brainwashed by Kim Jong-un, believe he's a god, and I think that's the truth, somewhat, but I think there's probably a lot more to the people of North Korea than just that. And the film is just a very broad satire, and at times it doesn't even try to be satirical. And I think that's at the film's disservice. I think it really should have been more of a satire, and less of a crass, over the top, comedy. But that's personally how I feel. If you're going to bring in this politics sort of thing, if you're going to be this kind of, you know, um, bring up this kind of controversial plot, and you're going to do this, and one of the first films to ever do it with Kim Jong Un and his regime, then it would make more sense to actually, I don't know, try a little bit harder with the satire. But it doesn't. It just ends up just very crass humor, and swear words, swearing, and blood, and violence, and and sex, and it's just craziness, which at points it is funny, but at other times it's just it just seems like it tries too hard. Personally, for me, it's like, oh, it's bloody and it's crazy and it's kind of unpredictable, but at the same time it's like, does it really, it just feels unfocused. It feels kind of, it's the tone is off to me. And the characters themselves, especially James Franco, who I like the actor, I like his performance, Dave Skylark, it's Dave Skylark, but his character is really a poorly written character. You barely know anything about this guy. You don't, all only thing you really know about him is that he's the host of this kind of this talk show, and he's got this very amicable personality, and he's a very likable guy, but you know nothing about this character. And James Franco's performance, I thought, was a bit too cartoonish for my taste at points. It was to the point where it was just like, okay, this isn't even, I know you're trying to be over the top, but it got to the point where it was like, it was just bad acting. It was over the top, hammy acting, and I didn't care for it. Seth Rogen, I thought, was the better of the two in this film. I thought Seth Rogen did a much better job than his counterpart in this film. I just thought his performance in this, James Franco's performance especially, just seemed really fake. Really, really fake. And the lines of dialogue he was given were, in my opinion, most of them weren't really that funny. There was a few that were entertaining, but the constant repeated joke of, they hate us because they ain't us, they hate us because they ain't us, they hate us because they ain't us. Honestly, James Franco was annoying to me. I thought he was an annoying character. I thought he was an annoying character. The only time I thought he was kind of interesting was the little bits of times that he would share with his friend, Seth Rogen. But he was annoying, and he was a moron. And and I guess that's the point. He's a moron. Like, he buys into, that's part of the joke, is that Kim Jong-un is a master manipulator, and so he manipulates Skylark into believing that he's a good guy and he's the right guy and so forth. But, and then you have the whole interview scene where you have another repeated joke. I mean, there's the problem. I think one of the problems I have with the film's humor is this as well. There's just a lot of repeated jokes. And to me personally, if you repeat a joke more than two times during the film, you're not doing the right thing. I mean, there's a difference between repeating jokes, okay? Like, you could repeat the same sort of semblance of a joke. Like, I don't know why this came up in my mind, but this is another crazy over-the-top movie, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. And what I mean by repeating jokes and doing it the right way is in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. They play board games with death, and they do multiple different board games, and it's very clever and very witty. Here, it's just repeating the same joke without any new iteration of the joke. It's just, the hate us because they ain't us, the hate us because they ain't us, the hate us because they ain't us, or the Katy Perry firework stuff. I mean, where during the interview, Seth Rogen is the one behind the camera, but during the interview, James Franco is the one he pretty much just starts saying the lyrics of Katy Perry's Firework, and that makes Kim Jong-un cry like a bitch and shit his pants. And that's supposed to be really, really funny, and to me, I was just like, This is just awkward, and not in the good way. 22 Jump Street is a really 21 and 22 Jump Street do fantastic jobs with awkward humor. Here it's just awkward and not a good way. It just seems really stupid. And I think that's the thing with this movie. There's some really, really stupid parts. But there's also some really, really fun parts of it too. I like there are some clever bits of satire, like in the whole satire of the Hollywood industry, of the Hollywood movie news type stuff, the news shows that Skylark is hosting his own show. The whole thing where Eminem is gay, and that so forth and so on. That part was pretty clever bit of satire. I really like Seth Rogen's character. I thought he was a likable character and had some fun lines of dialogue. Aaron Rappaport, and he had a nice heart to him. He actually seemed like an actual human being. James Franco just seemed like a puppet that said a bunch of funny lines. He didn't seem like a real character or a real person to me personally. Kim Jong-un had more characterization than James Franco did, to me personally. And I think if he was a better written character, that might have helped me a little bit more enjoy the film a lot more. I like Lizzy Caplan and the little bit that she has. I really like Lizzy Caplan. I really fell in love with her or her work since Hot Tub Time Machine, and I think she's a very undervalued actress in Hollywood. I think she's an excellent talent. Excuse me. And Randall Park is fantastic as Kim Jong-un. He really does an amazing job. And Diana Bang as Suk, I really liked her character. She was It was an interesting character. She kicked ass. She got like 2 machine guns and started mowing down a bunch of North Korean soldiers. The movie starts to get really interesting and really fun for me when it starts to become sort of an action movie, where yes, it's a bit unfocused on what it's trying to do. It starts out with the sort of humor, satire stuff, but it's there, but it's nothing really, really fantastic. But then it decides to, once they get to North Korea, and once you have the bits of humor, and Kim Jong-un shares his obsession with Katy Perry, with James Franco, and it shows him that he's not such a bad guy, but it's of course a trick. And you have the scene where they're supposed to poison Kim Jong Un with some like band-aid with some kind of band-aid that put on James Franco's put on his hand that has ricin in it, which is basically rat poison. Where he's gonna shake Kim Jong Un's hand. It's gonna kill him later, or he's gonna shit himself, and then all kinds of awful crazy shit's gonna happen. He's gonna die. Well, of course, James Franco, he becomes friends with Kim Jong-un, so he doesn't believe that he wants to kill him because he thinks he's a nice guy. But Seth Rogen's like, he's manipulating you. He's honey-dicking you, man. He's honey-dicking you. Which, that's one part of the film, part of the humor. One repeated joke I thought really did work because they did different versions of it throughout the film. It wasn't just repeated joke. It just wasn't just a repeated joke. And it was repeated. It was repeated. But what I'm saying is, much like Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, it did something different with it. It made it so Kim Jong Un is being honey dicked later. So and he mentions the dick. One of his aides mentions honey dicking, and that's one thing I really thought was really really clever from the screenplay is honey dicking, and that's the whole thing where it was honey potting was originally where it came from, is that Lizzy Caplan was honey potting Seth Rogen to get him to go along with this plan to take out Kim Jong Un, and of course James Rogen, she's honeypotting you, man. It's like, well, what do you mean by honeypotting you? And then they do a different version of that called honey dicking, and that's what James Franco is like. Kim Jong Un, that's where Aaron Rappaport, Seth Rogen is telling James Franco is like, you know what he was doing? Kim was honey dicking you, man. He was totally honey dicking you. Oh my god, he honey dicked me. That kind of stuff is pretty funny. And the whole scene where Seth Rogen has to recover this package because this is after James Franco buys into the honey dicking that's going on between him and Kim, and so he doesn't decide. He throws away the band-aid. It's not going to kill him. And then so of course there's nothing left now. So Seth Rogen, he's decided, okay, I gotta, I lost the package. We need more of them. So he ends up, so he has to go and find the package, which Lizzy Caplan and the CIA operatives are sending another package with more of the bandages or the poison in it. And so he has to go to the and get out of, the bedroom, or in Kim Jong Un's palace. He has to go in and he has to go out in the middle of this rice field somewhere. He has to wait for the package to come. And the package, and then while he's waiting, a fucking tiger shows up. And I think it was probably this is a pretty funny scene where the tiger is just it's ready. It's good effect too. It's like it's go. I think it's a real tiger actually. They'll go after Seth Rogen. And of course, he's like, "What am I gonna do as a fucking tiger?" And then you have James Franco. He's all like, he's saying like, "You gotta fuck that tiger. You gotta fuck that tiger." No, I don't want to fuck the tiger. You gotta fuck the tiger. You gotta fuck that tiger, man. That's the only way you're gonna survive. You gotta fuck that tiger. You gotta cunt punt that bitch. You gotta fuck the tiger, which I thought was pretty. Definitely vulgar. It's definitely a vulgar, like I said, crass humor, and that's not everybody's cup of tea. But it did have its moments like that. I thought it was pretty funny because it was just so absurd. And of course Lizzy Caplan's on the other end. It's like, no, no, do not fuck the tiger. Don't. You cannot fuck the tiger. So of course the package ends up arriving right in the tiger's head before it's about to eat Seth Rogen. Then he has to hide the package. So it's like, you know what you got to do. It's like, what? Oh no, no, no! I'm not doing that. So it's to shove the package up his ass, pretty much. And then, of course, that's where you get the line later. It's like, dude, you got fucked by RoboCop. So that kind of, I enjoyed those little bits of humor. And and then while this is going on, Seth Rogen's character, Erin, ends up falling in love with Sook. And I like her character that Diana Bong plays. It's this character who is one of these, basically the communications aide for Kim Jong Un, but she's also, she she agrees that he's a bad leader, that he's a dictator, and he should be taken out. And so she becomes like an inside help for the kind of starts the resistance against Kim Jong Un. And of course, that leads to some really fun action sequences later in the film, which are honestly some of my favorite parts of the movie. Are the action sequences, is where Sook starts gunning down a bunch of soldiers, and uh, you know and the whole thing where James Franco and Seth Rogen and Sook, they get in a tank and try to stop Kim Jong Un from launching his nukes. And of course, they stop him, blow his ass up with with a tank round that hits blows up the Kim Jong Un and his helicopter, and the resistance takes over. And I really like the choice of music at the end credits, and near the end credits. It's pretty much while they're Seth Rogen and James Franco are getting put on a boat and sent back to America. The song that plays in the background is "Wind of Change" by the Scorpions, yeah, 'cause it's not the Scorpions. "Wind of Change" by Scorpions, which is, I love that song, and they're my favorite band, so that was really really nice to hear that. Um, and then of course they get to America, and Skylark writes a book, and then reads a little bit of it, and that's how the movie ends. And spoilers all over the place as usual. But this is a film that the action sequences were fun, a little bit, so they were there. I mean, they were definitely gory. I mean, there's one where they drive the tank over a bunch of Korean soldiers and their heads pop like watermelons, which is pretty fun. The production design, I think, was really, really well done when it comes to the look of North Korea. They really did a fantastic job with that. Um, the production design, which I don't really know who did that, but the cinematography I thought was pretty solid too by Brandon Toast. The score really wasn't much of anything, nothing really memorable by Henry Jackman. Um, but overall, I mean, it doesn't sound like much, now does it? Because in the end of the day, it kind of isn't. It's just a typical James Franco, Seth Rogen comedy, but trying to be a little bit of a political satire, but really not going very far with it. And, mainly what separates it is this ballsy idea of them deciding to go to North Korea and assassinate Kim Jong-un. And the idea itself kind of doesn't honestly make for it doesn't maybe it's not really enough for a full film. Maybe it would have been better if it was like a short or something like that. I think honestly, This Is the End is a much better movie. It's got I think it has a more engaging plot. It's a much better film. I think it's a lot funnier as well. I think Neighbors is a better film as well than this. This is a movie that the more and more I think about it, the more and more I'm not the biggest fan of it personally. I enjoyed watching it for the first time around. I just don't know how it would hold up the second time because of the repeated jokes, of the whole uncomfortable experience of watching it, because of the subject matter, the, the plot isn't particularly super interesting, and the main thing I liked about it was the action scenes the most and a few jokes, but it wasn't nearly as funny as I thought it was going to be. And it's a film that, more and more I think about it, the more and more I'm like, I fall out of love with the movie. And I don't really think I'm even going to put it on my revised list of the best films of the year, is because it's a film that not a film I honestly would see myself watching again unless somebody wanted to watch it with me. I don't think that's not going to be it's going to be the case. Uh, uh, it's a movie that I said earlier in this review that was like, maybe buy it for cheap. I don't even know now. I really don't, because there are better James Franco, Seth Rogen films I'd rather watch than this. It had its moments, had some good performances by some of the cast members. I like the use of the Scorpions music, um, or not the Scorpions. Sorry, just because metal fans and band fans are kind of picky about that. Scorpion. I like the use of Scorpion's music, Wind of Change, and a few jokes here and there, and the action. But other than that, it's kind of disappointing a little bit, and kind of really the best thing ever. And I wasn't expecting it to be the best thing ever, but it's not very memorable, and I think that's a problem with the film. It's not a very memorable interview. It's not a very engaging interview. Even the interview itself is just kind of childish and immature, and not really epic or interesting. Or it starts out with him, James Franco telling the truth, and then he starts singing Katy Perry, and I didn't really care for the Katy Perry jokes in this. They didn't really think they were funny. And the hate is because the anus thing. The hate is because their anuses. Get it? It's just, I can deal with crass and immature and childish and over the top humor, but there was just something about this film that just, I don't know, it just didn't rub me the right way at the end of the day, really. And I mean, review started out a little bit more positive. And it really didn't, really. I was listing off a bunch of negatives at the start, and I only mentioned some positives recently. And more and more I think about the film, I gotta say that there's more negatives than there really are positives with this movie. I would say that's why, I don't know if I'd say there are more negatives. I'd say there are just about as many negatives as there are positives, which makes this a mediocre comedy, which makes this another so-so comedy of the year 2014, where there's only like two really, really, I mean, 22 Jump Street, second time around, I really enjoyed, I really loved it, and I really like Neighbors a lot, and that's probably says my favorite comedy of this year. This is up there with something like Horrible Bosses 2, which I could watch it once, but I'd forget about it and never think about it again, never watch it again, never have a need to watch it again, or want to watch it again. And considering a film that had the balls to do something so controversial, but at the same time not really do much with it in terms of satire, at least something clever that could really make it so it's a film you could watch over and over again. Um, but it really doesn't do much clever with its satire in North Korea, which would make you want to watch it more, so you could catch some meta references or some in jokes or whatever, or something you didn't get before. It's just a very broad, in your face political comedy that doesn't really work 100% of the time. There are times where it fires on all cylinders and is rapid fire and entertaining and funny. There are other and it has some good action, but there's other times where it just you're sitting there and you're just looking at it and you're just like, okay, all right, this is on the TV. This is what I'm watching. That I'm watching the interview. Okay, all right. You're not impressed. That's the thing. You're not impressed with what you're watching at points in this when you're watching this movie, and there are points where you don't laugh. And I think in a comedy, there is a decent amount of moments in this film where there's just not a lot of laughs. And this is a comedy. It's marketed as a comedy, and there are all the moments in the film where I just have to admit I didn't laugh. I didn't laugh, so it must not be that great of a comedy. But it wasn't terrible. It wasn't the worst thing ever, but it was mediocre. It was so-so. It was there. That's it. I said more praise in my review, like little review I did on the best of video I did with my friend Matt, Rambo After Life. We did the best of 2014. And I can't really agree with myself from over there. I really can't, because I didn't really think long and hard about it then. And also I didn't think about this in comparison to the other comedies I've seen this year, like Neighbors and 22 Jump Street. And this was just there. It had its moments, the action, some of the humor, the performances. James Franco, I didn't really care for his character. I thought it was annoying and obnoxious. And that's another reason why I don't really see myself wanting to see this film again. It's because I don't like that character, Dave Skylark. I don't really care for that character at all. And but take it for what you will. My review of the interview, my review slash rant, it's a little bit all over the place, but that's how the movie is. It's unfocused. It's scattered. It's a movie that its tone is one way, and then it's another, and then the humor is makes you laugh, and other times you're just sitting there, with your thumb up your ass, just waiting for something to happen that'll make you laugh, other than make you groan or make you just shake your head and be like, "Is this really? This is the best you can do?" But anyway, I really don't know what to say about the interview except it's rated out of 5 stars. 3 out of 5. It's the typical so-so mediocre. It's there. It's watchable. You can watch it once, but then forget about it later, because there's really not much. It's nothing memorable. And for a film that is this controversial and does all and took all these risks, it's not memorable. It's not particularly the funniest thing ever. And the action, you can see better action in better action movies, and it goes over the top at moments, but it just seems forced, and it doesn't really feel like it honestly it didn't feel necessary. I mean, stuff like somebody shooting their head off, or biting fingers off, or somebody getting a controller of a camera stick getting shoved up their ass. It's just this leaves a little bit to be desired, and it just seemed like shock humor, which just never shock humor to me most of the time doesn't really float my boat anyway. So that might be it. Maybe this film's humor is just not my cup of tea. Maybe that's it. It's just not my cup of tea. This film's humor. But if it sounds interesting to you, if you're curious about the film, or if you like Seth Rogen and James Franco, then give it a look. It's worth a watch maybe once, but that's it. I don't see this as a film that's going to be an American classic. I don't see this as a movie it's going to be, you know, one of my favorites of all time. No, I'm not even going to bother buying the movie on DVD or Blu-ray. So, yeah, I really don't know what to say about the interview, except it was just wasn't really that interesting and wasn't really that great of an interview. It was just It was there, just shrugging my shoulders. I don't know what else to say. Anyway, because these reviews suck. Because I can't just totally just rant on it and call it a piece of shit, but then again, I can't say I like it, so I have to find the damn middle ground, and I don't like doing reviews like this. And I got another one coming up, and Horrible Bosses 2 after I review the first film, which is just like this, which is just a completely generic, whatever, so-so, meh movie, meh comedy. Oh God, I hate fucking reviewing movies like this. But anyway, thank you for. I hope you guys at least enjoyed my review slash rant of the interview, this mediocre movie, and I will see you guys later. See ya.